Bloodborne and Demon's Souls games are cut from the same cloth. Both of them are role-playing games and are essentially part of the larger Souls franchise, which includes the majority of the games that From Software developed in the past decade, with the rare exceptions like the Sekiro Shadows Die Twice existing on the side. While Bloodborne and Demon's Souls have similar gameplay and engines, anyone who has played one of them will easily realize how different the other one is as soon as they fight a few enemies. While Demon's Souls was not a subject of comparison with more recent Bloodborne originally since it was quite outdated, things changed when the former got a full-fledged remake that gives it an entirely new life. With updated graphics and gameplay, Demon's Souls on the PlayStation 5 is relevant as it ever was today, and it finally holds up against the Souls games that came after it. So the ultimate question that rises now: which game is better in comparison between Bloodborne and Demon's Souls PlayStation 5? Let's take a look at the important factors that determine which game is better and answers this difficult question. Normally this would have been a very easy question to answer because Demon's Souls came out a few years after Bloodborne, and not only that, it utilizes the graphical and hardware based advantages that the PlayStation 5 offers, which makes it look breathtakingly lifelike. However, there is one thing that is limiting it aesthetically, and that is the fact that it's the remake of the PlayStation 3 game. Don't get me wrong, it still looks amazing and I'm particularly fond of the medieval castles, but you cannot take any liberties to go beyond that, and can only improve the idea as much as possible. Bloodborne, on the other hand, does not conform to any limitations and features unique atmosphere that neither Dark nor Demon's Souls offers. The bloody skies looking below in the Victorian era are full of ancient structures that feel unsettling familiar is something of a sight to be behold. Everything has a gothic touch to it that is not vague about its theme. And the design of the monsters and bosses feel more personal than the other Souls games, since it was contributed to the main visual theme going on with the Bloodborne. As a result, with Demon's Souls having better graphics in terms of the texture, quality and the animations thanks to the PlayStation 5's superior hardware, I can't help but find Bloodborne's unique aesthetic that utilizes its room for creativity much more attractive. Demon's Souls has a good amount of lore, which is something that you'll find pretty much in every Souls games. You hardly ever see a general ongoing story because the focus here is immersion and practically allowing the player to create their own adventures in the open world that is granted to them. However, Bloodborne is less ambiguous and offers more context to everything that is going on in its world. The story feels much more personal and tight-knit in the Bloodborne because it acts as a context for the most things that's going on. There are extremely interesting and tragic storylines behind most bosses that you will fight. These aren't just mythical beasts, but you encounter on your way in the medieval castles. There are creatures that have Lovecraftian vibe to them, and they are for a reason, of course. Bloodborne's direct approach to its storyline does not mean that the lore suffers. There's still a lot to learn about the game's world that is not spoon-fed to the player. There's just also more context available in this game than in Demon's Souls, and that's actually a great thing, because it would have been a shame to have no goal while wandering inside the dark fantasy Victorian era city. And speaking of the tight-knit, there's just more narrative coherence to be found in the Bloodborne when you're comparing it to the rest of the Souls games, thanks to its linear approach to the world. Now, there's plenty of foreshadowing for future events throughout the game, which even ties to the endings, which is just to help you feel that you're a part of the narrative that is much larger than yourself. So ultimately, I prefer Bloodborne's approach to the story here, because of the reasons that I've mentioned. And again, this is partially because of the limitations of remaking a game that came out on the PlayStation 5 without any of the predecessors. They just can't improve certain aspects too much in a remake without essentially just creating a new game altogether. The graphics, story, and the presentation of the game are an important aspect that contributes to its overall quality, but But the one thing that mainly makes or breaks a game, it is its gameplay. You purchased it for the game aspect of it after all. Let me start off by saying I absolutely love Demon's Souls gameplay on the PlayStation 5. It feels extremely fluid and both the exploration and combat are as fun as they ever have been. I loved going around castle to castle, running into new types of enemies and fighting the giant bosses. And it's just hard not to love what you're doing when everything feels so smooth. You need patience to get anywhere because the focus here is on slow but satisfying combat. However, this is by far the least complex game in the Souls series because of the fact that it came before even Dark Souls 1. And as a result, it's quite easier compared to the other games too. While the remake could have been improved upon those aspects, I understand why it didn't, and the experience eventually is too authentic compared to the original game for its own good. Bloodborne, on the other hand, is comparatively different. It features faster-paced combat that feels closer to hack-and-slash game than it does to Demon's Souls. You have to be more aggressive in every fight, and your enemies will give you less of window to breathe as well. The bosses are far more creative thanks to the game's Lovecraftian theme, so that allows for the gameplay to be more varied. It's very difficult and punishing too, unlike Demon's Souls, since it had much better of the foundation to work off after the Dark Souls games came into being. Since Demon's Souls is less linear, it has a gear system that offers 18 types of weapon classes and tons of different types of equipment to be obtained that enhances your type of the build. It takes a lot of time and grinding, but the variety is worth it in the end. Bloodborne, on the other hand, has a linear approach in which you can collect from 26 different weapons and you can try every one of them out to see which one suits you the most. While some weapons are certainly better than the others, it's rare to find any useless ones and being able to try almost every one of them out without wasting your time is a very rewarding experience in its own right. It's hard to pick one winner here as it's more of a preference-based situation. If you like faster-paced gameplay with a linear approach, Bloodborne is a better game. But if you prefer slower gameplay and prioritize its exploration and immersion, as well as a good old spend dozens of hours finding gear type of thing, then you will like Demon's Souls more instead. Personally though, I would say that I would prefer Bloodborne's gameplay a bit more because it's far more accessible. I know people who did not enjoy the Dark Souls series much, but still had a great time playing Bloodborne, whereas the majority of the people that did enjoy Dark Souls series, they actually enjoyed Bloodborne too. An undeniable and awesome factor that Demon's Souls has is the cooperative multiplayer. Being able to join your friends on your quest to slay demons and monsters is something that has always been a staple for the series, and a very enjoyable aspect of it. Souls games are already very replayable and having multiplayer just makes it a whole lot better. Bloodborne unfortunately lacks this aspect. Now, I know that Bloodborne has multiplayer that others can join you or you can join them, but anyone will say that waiting for half an hour just to join your friend's session is just unacceptable. And even further has a bit of less replayability compared to the Demon's Souls due to its comparatively linear gameplay. Now it does have multiple endings and have a couple of things that you can do differently here and there, but ultimately it falls short in this department. What Bloodborne does offer though, it's randomly generated dungeon mode that puts you against a ton of different bosses and enemies, which puts you to the limits. Given the game's difficulty, however, it's not something that everyone can enjoy and is meant for those who wish to be pushed to their limits or those that wish to get a platinum trophy. And of course the game also has DLC content that lets you play around more with its rich and expansive setting. It does not make up for the awful matchmaking for the multiplayer, but it does make it more than an average single player game if nothing else. So if you like your games to last you a lifetime, it's definitely a con for Bloodborne to not be as replayable as Demon's Souls. But for those who prefer a shorter and more focused approach, then they would prefer Bloodborne instead. There is one thing that I did not compare between the two games, and that is the soundtrack. That is because both games feature really good music that fits their respective atmosphere perfectly. Not only that, but the sound design in general is very satisfying to hear in both of the games too. As for what I did compare, Bloodborne for me wins in aesthetic, gameplay and story aspect since the game was able to have a better foundation to follow up on that what Demon's Souls had back then. Hidetaka Miyazaki, the creator of the Souls series, stated that despite loving all of the games in the franchise, he prefers Bloodborne the most as he feels like he's got to have the most creative control over it. So you can see why Bloodborne just oozes originality in every aspect of the game. The replayability is the only aspect that Demon's Souls still wins in despite faithfully following the structure of the 7th generation game, and that is because the multiplayer is just too good to pass up on the game like this. So the winner in this case is going to be going to Bloodborne. With a unique setting unlike any other and gameplay that is much more intense to play through, it is just impossible to not lose yourself in the gothic beauty in this masterpiece. Guys, if you want to support me also, you can support me using a Patreon. I will leave the links down below in the description. Lastly, I've got a full playlist of my special big videos that I have put time and effort into them. At this moment, I've got more than 50 videos already up. Please be sure to check them all out. Like and subscribe, see you guys all and have a wonderful day.